Secretary of State Mike Pompeo gave his first major foreign policy speech since being sworn in. He spoke this morning at the Heritage Foundation, backing up the president's decision to pull out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal and warning that new sanctions are on the way.
These will indeed end up being the strongest sanctions in history when we are complete. I've spent a great deal of time with our allies in my first 3 weeks. I know that they may decide to try and keep their old nuclear deal going with Tehran. That is certainly their decision to make. They know where we stand.
He also gave a very long list, you see there, of demands for Iran to agree. They need to agree to them in order for a new deal to be negotiated. Strong words from the man President Trump says he has great chemistry with. But the big question is, does this change anything? We're going to talk about that. And joining us this segment is New York Times' David Sanger. Welcome, David, to you. You wrote a great piece about North Korea, which we're going to get to in a second. But first, your thoughts on what we heard from the Secretary of State about Iran.
Well, this was really a remarkable speech. It was his first big speech as Secretary of State. It was extremely hard-hitting. It was directly critical by name of John Kerry, his predecessor once removed. Which is rare. You don't usually see secretaries go directly after their predecessors. It had this long list of demands, which if you added them all up, stop all support for terrorism, stop messing around in Iraq, stop messing around in Syria, never enrich a single gram of uranium. It would basically be telling Iran not to be Iran, right? It's not a list the Iranians are going to sign up for. His message to the allies was basically tough luck. If you don't like the secondary sanctions, which basically hurt European firms, well, that's life. What he never quite got to was the critique that the United States had entered a deal, granted under a different administration, signed up with its allies from it, and then turned around and said, forget it, we don't like it.
Right. I mean, it seems as though the main purpose of this, in addition to being as detailed as he, I guess, possibly could, whether it's pie in the sky or not, is to echo the feelings and the thoughts of the guy he works for, the President of the United States. And it was really striking to our team the difference in approach that we're hearing from Pompeo and his predecessor, Rex Tillerson. Listen to an example.
The Iran deal, which may be the single worst deal I've ever seen drawn by anybody.
The Obama administration made a bet that the deal would spur Iran to stop its rogue state actions and conform to international norms. That bet was a loser with massive repercussions for all of the people living in the Middle East.
We want to take the agreement as it exists today, as I said, fully enforce that agreement, be very demanding of Iran's compliance under the agreement, and then begin the process of addressing these flaws.
And you wonder why there's a change in personnel.
Yeah, Pompeo seems to understand how to handle Trump a little bit better than Rex did. But I do think that there were, this wasn't everyone wasn't exactly rowing in the same direction on the Iran decision. There were folks inside the administration asking for more time before the president made his decision. The difference this time is you see all the public-facing comments in the same direction. And I think the other significance of the speech today, to piggyback on David's comments a little bit now, is that now we actually, whether Iran will how they respond to this, and I think we know how they will respond to this, there are wholesale changes to Iran's military posture in the Middle East, much tougher requests on nuclear than was in the current deal. But at least now we know what this administration's Iran policy is, which is something I don't think we knew a few days ago when Trump made this decision.
Yeah, and Jeff, it certainly seems as though the people in the administration, and they do exist, who think that this is the wrong way to go, they see the writing on the wall and they're keeping their lips locked.
They've been so quiet. I mean, watching that segment there is, a new sign of Trump's new foreign policy. We have seen him, find his way in office. All presidents learn in office, no question, but he has shoved any dissenters to the side here. I mean, he recertified the deal a couple times. He did not like that, so now he's very comfortable with this policy of Mike Pompeo. The defense secretary has not said a word about this, and he's not been on board, but he's been quiet.
Can I just want to get to David's great piece in the Times this morning about North Korea and the angst, for lack of a better way to say it, that the president has about what he's gotten himself into. Here's what you wrote. Mr. Trump's decision this month to withdraw from the 2015 nuclear deal raises the stakes for the North Korean negotiation. If he emerges with anything less than what President Barack Obama got, which in Iran included the verified shipment of 97% of all nuclear material out of the country, it will be hard for Mr. Trump to convince anyone other than his base that the negotiation was a success. The stakes couldn't be higher, and he's starting to get worried that he can't figure it out.
If you could get out of the North Koreans what President Obama got out of the Iranians, shipping that much fuel out, bringing the enrichment down to just negligible levels, and get 15 years of that, people would be celebrating in the streets. And those crowd shouts of Nobel, Nobel, you'd be hearing a lot more of. They're not going to get that out of the North Koreans, and I think they're suddenly coming face to face with the thought that while meeting Kim Jong-un is a great gesture, and I think probably the right gesture to try to do things in a different way than past administrations have tried and failed, that once they're in the room, they're not likely to emerge, at least at the beginning, with anything resembling a solid deal.
And real quick, I just want to also point out the great detail in your story about the president really being reluctant to get into the nitty-gritty of the actual science of what's going on with the North Korean nuclear program, whereas his opponent, his negotiating partner, is very familiar with it.
Yeah, because it's his program.
Exactly.
In the early days of the Obama administration, when President Obama had to learn about this covert cyber program we had to try to disable the Iranian nuclear program, he would be down in the Situation Room with this giant map of the centrifuges and sort of see what it was the United States was secretly attacking. Mm-hmm. It's hard to imagine Donald Trump in that situation. He just does not want to sit. He knows about the weapons, but he doesn't want to sit there and hear about the other parts of the program that he's going to have to go confront in the room. Mm-hmm. Kim Jong-un has spent his life building this program.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to that point, I think that what concerns a lot of his Republican allies, Trump's Republican allies, is that he's been so eager to get a deal that maybe he'll sign up for everything that just may not be a good deal, particularly one in which they've demanded to denuclearize, and North Korea is clearly not ready to go as far as what the public posture of the United States has been.
Now, if Pompeo was in the room, that may make a difference. As CIA director, he's been paying attention.
My guess is he'll be in the room. Yeah. David, always great to see you. Thanks for sharing
Thank you.
your insights and your reporting.